What's up, everybody? Thank you for coming to my page today. We're gonna get out there. We're gonna catch some fish. I'm going out today to catch some crappie. I'm gonna do this in a number of different ways. I'm gonna explain how I'm doing it the entire time. Using these tricks, you're gonna catch more fish. When you have those days when it's hot and it's hard to catch the fish, they're just not biting, try switching up how you're doing it. Try some of these techniques I'm talking about. Now just hang out with me for this short period of time, and after watching this today, you should be able to put a few more techniques in your arsenal that you're going to be able to catch these fish with. Alright, stay tuned. Alright, so what I'm doing right here is I threw out my nice little crappie magnet on a 16th ounce jig, casted it out, and I have it on the front of my kayak there, just snug in a rod holder. If you don't have a rod holder, you can do what I've did for a long time. Have it tucked in between your legs. You know, I just put it under the end of the rod on under one leg, and so I can hold on to it, and I just paddle along. So I have that thing behind me. The purpose of this is to cover water in areas where there's a higher probability of where crappie are. That's going to be the second level. That's going to be depending on where you're at. So, for example, this lake is 30 feet deep. The second level is anywhere from 10 to 20 feet. That's where these crappie are going to be hanging out after they move away from the spawn. I'm talking summer, hot. I'm talking fall, when it's starting to get cold at night. And honestly, in the winter, depending on where you live, that's where they're going to be too, over brush piles. But this is a great effective way to cover water, and it can help you identify where these crappie are staged up. Because everyone knows after the spawn, these guys are schooling up. I think the saying goes, you know, if you find one, you found 100. And for the vast majority of cases, that's true. So if you have a big lake that you're gonna have a ton of spots to go to, you know, just do this on the way there, and try to stay in that depth range where, you know, your probability of catching a fish is a lot higher. You know, don't paddle close to shore. Don't paddle in the middle of the lake where it's super deep. You know, just cover some water, and you're gonna hook up like I did. See, I'm just trolling away, trying to get to the back where I know that second level it's got a ton of brush on it, and I hooked up. You know, I had a nice little crappie. I mean, it was sun's coming up, man. It's not even light out. I could hardly see. I mean, it was pretty dark, but you know, you can't argue, you know, when you catch a fish and you're not even anticipating it. But I think it's very important, you know, when you know the bite's tough, when you have those really hot summer days,
that thing.
I think trolling is one of the most effective ways to catch fish.
Wait a second.
And you can do it from a big boat, a kayak. I feel like it's a little easier with a kayak. Just because you're not creating that much of a disturbance. But yeah, as you can see, that crappie, he liked it so much, man, he choked him down. And you know, I got him, but you know, I'm gonna keep these fish. I'm not gonna let him go to waste. He's gonna go in the bag. You know, we're gonna eat him for dinner. You know, so unfortunately, that's just how it goes sometimes. Sometimes you get him in the gills, but as you can see here, this is exactly how I do it. Cast it out, put it in the rod holder, and then I'm just gonna paddle. I know where I want to go. I'm in a spot where I'm at that second level, and I'm just covering water. It's that simple, guys. There's really no other way to put it. It's just identifying the areas of higher probability and putting yourself in those areas, you know, and having a line in the water at all times. I mean, you got to have a line in the water to catch fish. That's just how it works. But this is, you know, I'm talking, this is midsummer hot. as hot can be out here in Michigan. That's where I live. You know, them fish are, you know, they're not actively feeding in the middle of the day. So it gets tough, man. It gets tough just like anywhere else. It can be hard to catch fish. So I try to use any sort of advantage that I can. And this is definitely one of those I like to utilize. You'll catch fish by surprise too. I've went a whole day casting, you know, using every technique under the book, didn't catch anything. And then I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going to go back in. But while I'm going back in, I throw a line out trolling on the way in, and I've hooked up. And I'm just like, man, that's crazy. I just spent 2, 3, 4 hours out here, didn't get a single bite. But on my way in, you know, I was able to hook up just by trolling, man. But yeah, look at that sunrise there. I mean, what more can you ask for? Go out fishing, you have an amazing sunrise, you know, you hook up with a fish, trolling, and man, you really can't beat it. But yeah, as you can see there, got another crappie, just like that, just on the troll. You know, I'm using a 16th ounce jig head, and I'm using a crappie magnet on there. 2 very, very cheap baits, and I'm going to have them linked in the description. They're Bombite jigs and crappie magnets. I got the links to buy those in the description. I use these every time I go out. I can't say it's all that I use, but those are my go-tos. They just work. So yeah, see, I'm still trying to get to where I want to go, and you know, I'm just admiring the sunrise. But here's another thing you can do. Another thing you can do to catch some crappie, big bluegill, stuff like that in the summer, and that's vertical jig. Now, if you have a fish finder and you can identify where those fish are at, this is going to work very well for you. If you don't have a fish finder, that's okay. Once you catch your first fish trolling, you've identified a location where they could be. And you can cast around until you catch something, and then you've got even closer. And you can find out where they are and start vertical jigging that area, and it will work. Crappie are on brush piles, and they school up. They school up and they feed that way too on bait fish. So if you catch one, there's a high probability that there's a lot more there. And you can vertical jig that area. I've done it without a fish finder. Now, a fish finder does make it quite a bit easier. I have a very inexpensive one. I have a Garmin Striker 4. There's just a few $100 to buy the fish finder, the mount, the transducer, you know, everything. Little over, it was like $279, I believe. And I have a video on my page that shows how I installed it to my kayak with a link to all the stuff I used to get it and to have it installed out the door. I was always kind of leery about them. I thought they were cheating. I didn't, you know, and then I got it and I was kind of intimidated, but they work. Another way to catch fish when it's hard is the almighty slip bobber. This is great. It's basically the same thing as vertical jigging. I caught fish all spring long on the fish finder. I didn't have my fish finder yet, and it worked great. I use a double jig underneath my bobber. I'm at about 8 feet deep. I tie them with loop knots. It's the same 16th ounce jig, crappie magnet. I tie them about 14 to 16 inches apart from each other on loop knots. And I just throw them out under the slip bobber. And I tell you what, man, it works. It's just like vertical jigging, but you can cover more water. And then I'm coming back to the vertical jigging. I had something pop up on my fish finder. I was like, man, what is that? It was massive. And I excited. So I decided I was going to vertical jig, and I hooked up. Look at the bend in that rod, man. This is a medium light. That's a good bend. You know, I had something just blow up on it. Man, I get them in the bag, and I'm just like, holy cow.
That's a big one.
I was pumped. You know, this is a massive crappie for where I live. This is huge. This is a trophy crappie for where I live. Just vertical jigging right under me. I was in about 12 feet of water. Had a big fish pop up on the fish finder with a bunch of little ones. I was kind of thinking, well, maybe it's a bass or something, you know, and I hooked up with this guy.
Look at that guy. That's
I mean, that is
the
definition of a slab crappie right there, folks. Can't really argue it at all. It was a tank. But I was able to catch that crappie simply by vertical jigging. Just like that. Middle of summer. It's hot. The sun's coming up. That's why I'm out so early. And I just caught this absolute slab of a crappie. 16th ounce jig, crappie magnet. He's coming home for dinner, man. Can't argue it. I was pumped. I mean, just because it gets hot out doesn't mean you can't catch crappie. They're out there. You're going to have a chance to get them. It's just finding out how they want it. And once you do, you can really hook up with them. I mean, so far we've went through the slip bobber. We've went through the vertical jigging, which I'm hooked up right here. We've went through the trolling. That works amazing too. You know, this is just a little bluegill guy, and it's actually funny. Bluegill actually do fight very hard for their size. I mean, if they got a lot bigger, man, they would probably outshine bass. I mean, it just seems like those little bluegill, man, they've been fighting their entire lives being, you know, a bait fish kind of until they get older. So they are tough. I respect them. But yeah, they are awfully tasty too. But with these, using these techniques, aside from just throwing out your jig and reeling it back slow or something, you're going to catch fish. It's really that simple. And it's fun to catch fish in different ways. It's fun to learn new things. So I just, you know, if you're out, you're having a tough day, I just give one of these techniques a try, man. You're going to catch something. And it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to revolutionize your game. So if you stuck around to watch this, I really appreciate it. I put a lot of work into what I do. I enjoy it, and I love sharing what I've learned. So thank you so much for watching. Give me a like. You know, leave me a comment if you got questions, and subscribe if you like this kind of content. So I appreciate you guys. Have a great day. See ya.